All right, I think we're ready to get started. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about preparing your campus to help ensure student and faculty safety. Now, just a few housekeeping items. Everyone is on mute. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the questions or chat sections, and we will answer those at the end of the webinar. We are also recording this and we'll be sending out the recording either later today or tomorrow. Today we have joining us our moderator, Michael Willett, who is our Business Development Manager from Archibus Fairview. And we also have Michael Chambers, who is a Project Manager of Design and Construction at St. John's University, and Bob Lawn, who is a CAFM Specialist at Long Beach Unified School District. So thank you guys for joining us today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Danielle, and welcome to everyone on the webinar today. Just wanted to start here today with a couple of guidelines. In May 2020, the ACHA, the American College Health Association, released a series of guidelines as considerations for reopening higher education institutions. The document is several pages long, and they're very detailed. So we took that opportunity and pulled out a couple of what we believe to be relevant bullet points that sort of relate to our discussions today with our presenters. So from a phased and gradual resumption of activities perspective, they're recommending that phased approach for the resumption of all activities and getting back on campus safely. But they're basing that on the overall capacity and those guidelines around overall capacity, the general health considerations, and they're also asking for, as part of that, a widespread testing and contact tracing approach, both of which, you know, clearly are quite critical in terms of being able to understand where potential people may be infected and how they may have infected other locations. The other portion of this, or the continued portion of this, I guess, is once you understand that contact tracing and infected areas, and that is understanding how you might isolate either people or spaces within your organization or on your campus, and then how you deal with that. How do you obviously quarantine people, but how do you then flag those areas for appropriate sterilization and disinfection and that. And of course, you know, physical distancing. If anybody's turned on the TV here in the last few months, I think everybody's quite aware of what the CDC and other organizations like the ACHA are recommending for physical distancing: a minimum of 6 feet apart. If you can't be 6 feet apart, they're recommending physical barriers between people to mitigate the transmission of particulates, you know, between individuals and mitigate the spread of the disease. So, thanks. For facility considerations, again, this is from the same document. The link is actually at the bottom of the document there. If anybody would like to read the entire thing, it is several pages long, and as I said before, quite detailed. It's a great document to read. There are a number of significant recommendations, both in this document and out on the street. So again, here we've just highlighted a few of these, and you know, of course, you know, maintaining 6 feet between workstations and workers, using plexiglass or other barriers, you know, in between if you can't maintain that 6 foot distance. Removing chairs, desks to ensure that proper physical distancing. A lot of people are looking at, you know, hoteling options and the like to help with those types of activities, to make sure people are physically positioned in a way that adheres to those guidelines. Providing hand sanitizer at all entrances and high traffic areas. Again, this is just a mitigation technique, monitoring and securing PPE. I know we've had some struggles in this country around getting access to PPE and getting that distributed. Hopefully we're coming out of that and it becomes better and more availability to it. But it's going to be real important to have that PPE available to the folks in your organization. And then the last one is an area I think we can really help in from an Archibus and Ceraview perspective is enhanced cleaning in all these common areas. How do you identify, as I said a moment ago, how do you identify those contaminated areas and track and manage all of those activities that go along with disinfecting those areas so that they can be brought back into your inventory for use. All of these things are significant considerations for the facility staffs on your campuses. It's things that they're not used to having to deal with, and I can imagine many of you on the webinar today are having some pretty significant discussions around all of this as we go forward and try to bring people back on campus in a safe and effective way. Now, just to highlight a couple of statistics, these statistics are from a survey to college and university presidents, also done in May, so just a month or so ago. And from the graphics, you can see that many institutions are quite confident, or they seem quite confident, of returning to campus and under normal operations. But you can also tell by the graphics there that there's still a significant amount of doubt across all institutions, whether they're public, 4-year, private, or 2-year institutions. About 50% saying it's very likely that operations will go forward in the fall. And then I'm going to flip to the next slide. And then, lastly, this is a really interesting snapshot of some of the activities that people are considering, or that, again, this went out to university presidents. So the university presidents were reporting on some of the activities that, they're considering for getting people back on campus safely and to maintain their safety while they're on campus. I think it's interesting that one of the biggest concerns seems to be space for residential quarantining on campus. So if you have a quarantine situation on campus, where do you put them, right? Where do you put people so that they can quarantine effectively? Many other activities around PPE and testing and screening and that as well. But it's just interesting to me that the vast majority are very concerned about space. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Michael Chambers of St. John's University.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity of having myself from St. John's University to be able to discuss some of the challenges that we see from the university sector and how we are using Archibus to be able to solve some of those challenges that we are facing with the new normal, like most higher education institutions are facing as it relates to social distancing from faculty, students, and administrating staff. So some of the challenges that we are facing as a university are as follows. How can a university reduce its classroom capacity to meet new social distancing measures? So there's some classes that we currently have on campus that seat 30, 40, 50 seats in a classroom. With new social distancing measures, that probably won't be the new normal. So how do we reduce those classroom capacities? It's one of the questions that we are trying to answer. How can the university identify additional classroom and online spaces? So with the reduce of classroom capacities to meet social distancing measures, we have to look into additional classroom spaces on campus. And then with certain students taking online classes, also we need to be able to look into additional spaces for online learning and in-person classroom, because some students may be taking online classes and also in-person classes at the same time. So we are looking into more additional spaces for online learning. Where slash how many social distancing hotspots are on campus? We have hundreds of different workstations. We have shared offices between faculty and some administrating staff. The new normal, we probably won't be able to have two people per office. So we need to be able to quickly identify certain areas that are hotspots. There are workstations that are in close quarters next to each other. So we would need to be able to quickly identify where those areas are in the various buildings we have on campus. That's another challenge that we have. Another challenge that we have is how can a university reopen safely and adhere to new social distancing measures in areas that are at capacity pre-COVID-19? So we have many different departments on campus that are pretty much at capacity. Many offices are filled, workstations are filled within that department. So how can we create a new social distancing, spreading out those individuals when most of the spaces are at capacity? So I want to switch over and talk about some of the solutions that we are using with Archibus to be able to create a new normal with social distancing measures in place. So the reduction of the classroom capacity, we're able to use the new LIPS command within Archibus to be able to identify the maximum amount of seats we can have per classroom that meets the new social distancing guidelines. So it's not enough to be able to assume a one-third assumption that we're going to reduce our seat count by one-third. It's not enough because some of the classrooms that we have on campus are larger than others. Some have columns in the way that would affect the layout. So by using the LIPS command, we can easily be able to see which seats in certain classrooms create a conflict, a hotspot with the social distancing measures, and we can modify our layout accordingly to get a true seat count based off the new social distancing measures per classroom, which is very helpful with our other departments as we plan which classrooms meet where. The next concern was identifying additional classroom space in online learning. So in the Space Console, we can identify all the common spaces that we have on campus. So some of the common spaces that we have on campus where people were meeting pre-COVID-19, that probably won't be happening this coming fall. So we can be able to identify those spaces, determine if the size or the existing infrastructure, electric, HVAC, things of that nature are in place, and if it meets our classroom / online learning demands. The next challenge that we had was social distancing hotspots on campus. So also by using the LIPS command within Archibus, we can easily see where or how many workstations violate the social distancing measures. By using the LIPS command, we're able to put a 6-foot radius circle over the different workstations, and we're able to see which ones have potential conflicts and which ones don't. One of our greater challenges, which we're actually working, every day right now, as in New York area, we're certain employees are starting to come back and at different phases, is trying to work with the different departments that are at capacity, so they don't have any free space. How do we spread out these different employees? So within Archibus, it allows us to classify certain spaces as essential, reservable, and work shifts, which allows us to provide a shift schedule for departments that are at capacity. So we can be able to meet with the different departments and determine who is essential, who needs to be there 4 times out of the week or maybe every day. We can identify certain spaces that we may have on campus, maybe they're student worker spaces, as reservable. So if somebody needs to come back to the office for something urgent, they can be able to sit in those different spaces as touchdown spaces just for that day or maybe for a set amount of hours. And then we can be able to create a work shift. So maybe Monday through Wednesday, certain individuals come, Tuesday and Thursday, the other shift comes, and then these shifts could be able to rotate on Friday. So this is something that we can be able to provide to the different departments to be able to solve the need where they have certain departments that are at capacity. In closing, Archibus has been very essential in us feeling ready and prepared to bring faculty, students, and administrators back to some form of new normal, like the rest of the world and other universities are facing today. St. John's University, it's been maybe over a year since we started with Archibus, and we spent most of our time putting in, our data that we have around campus, and then we had to switch gears when COVID-19 came, and it's been very helpful that we have been using Archibus because now we're leveraging all the data that we just had, and I just wanted to be able to express to the people that are on this webinar that it's been very helpful as we prepare with the reopening, and we feel very prepared in what we're combating and answering the tough questions as to what does the new normal look like with our university. So without further ado, I want to pass the baton over to Bob Alon from Long Beach Unified Schools.
And actually, sorry, Michael, before we do that, we did have one question come through. They were wondering if you had any recommendations on outside of the classrooms, maybe focusing more on the housing or office space.
Yeah, so currently we haven't put most of our housing within the Archibus database at the moment, but we're looking to doing that. So one thing that we have been talking about was reducing some of the areas that we have for people per unit, maybe split that down to just one person per unit to be able to help with the new normal and pre-COVID-19. So that's one thing that we're looking into.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Bob, I think we're ready for you. Oh, it looks like you may be on mute. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Hello all. Thanks for coming and sharing a little bit of time with me. I work for the Long Beach Unified School District out here in California, and much to what Michael was saying, we seem to be doing somewhat of the same thing as far as our tactics and our procedures. But when this all started out, I was asked, because I do the CAFM stuff, I was asked a simple question: how many students can we support in this new COVID age? And quite honestly, I was a little nervous answering that because I'm not sure all our data in the system was 100% accurate. What they were really looking for when they asked that question was they wanted to get a rough number to start to evaluate how many kids, we're going to come back, how many kids we could fill the seats with. So with that said, the accuracy of the data over the years, to no fault of anybody else, but sometimes we have 87 schools in our district, and to follow these schools so granularly is really a hard thing to do. So sometimes when we would pull data, it may say a classroom. It's not really a classroom anymore. They've changed it into a, I don't know, some other use, some office or some other type of use. So I was a little concerned with, with that as far as giving them the answers. So I had to take some other steps. What we did, first off, we had to figure out what is social distancing design. We had some guidelines. They were passed down. We've changed them a couple times, but we needed to start with the 6-foot diameter around each kid and start placing them into the schools. Some of the things that, because our schools are so old, there's a lot of woodwork, a lot of bookshelves, and a lot of other things that just aren't really in the classroom that should be there. So we ended up coming up with a 20% factor to accommodate for any woodwork in there, any file cabinets, anything like that. And what we did was we took 20%. We said that's going to be something we're going to use across the board, because with 87 schools, there's no way we're going to go to each one of these classrooms and be able to do it right away to give them an answer. So with that said, we figured we're going to use about a 46 square foot area around each kid and kind of lay the kids in the school, in the classrooms that way. So we found out that we were going from 30 kids down to about 16 to 17. And that was the need to look for alternate space. And alternate space we termed as, you know, thinking out of the box space, maybe a cafeteria, maybe in the auditorium, you know, things like that. And that was one of the challenges to find the alternate space that was usable. The other thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to field verify the space that was used, and we'll get into that in a little bit, and I'll show you how I did that. But how I used Archibus was we ran a program to find out all the classes in the district, and then we also ran some data sets for alternate space over 100 square feet, and that gave us a whole nother list that we could look at to, you know, kind of go into the schools and see how many kids we can actually get in there. So that's kind of how we went through that. The field verification and the data I'll get to in another slide, but maybe we can go to the next slide here. And so our social distancing approaches, again, we're most common to everybody else is what we're dealing with, the 6 foot. Here I put in the 20% for the wood file cabinets deducted from the interior square footage. And again, we're looking for the alternate space. So let's go to the next slide, please. Oops. So when I started looking at this, you know, I was going, this looks like a sprinkler head from an irrigation system, is basically how I laid it out. Head to head, 6 foot diameters going around. And that was our first try, you know, and while it looks cool on paper, and I certainly maximized all the space that I could by that triangular pattern, we thought that setting it up in a classroom was going to be a little bit difficult. So we went more into an X and a Y type pattern. You know, we lose a little bit, but it was easier for them to set up. So in this case that I have up on the screen, I think I have them both ways, just as we're going back and forth trying to figure it out. So can you go to the next slide, please? This was the updated type of layout that we came up with. You can see it's more linear, X and a Y, and it seemed to work for pretty much all the classes, all the rooms, whether it be elementary, middle school, or high school. So that's kind of where we went with that. And can we go to the next slide, please? So this is kind of what it ended up being. This is actually one of those drawings that you were just seeing on the other side. We physically went out and laid out the classrooms, and like I said, we dropped about 50%. But one of the things that, you know, as we were doing this, if you look at in this picture, if you look underneath the clock, you'll see a desk that's pretty much up against the wall. Yeah, we didn't consider, you know, those type of things to be an impedance in a safety area around a child or a student. So we kind of pushed the desks as close as we could out to the walls, just to maximize the space. So let's try the next slide, please. So as I was saying before, what we're doing, we're running basically spreadsheets of what the classes were, what were classrooms. And then down at the bottom, we ran another report, and these are the kind of the alternate classroom or alternate spaces that we were identifying that we could put kids in. And, to Michael's point previously, yeah, we also were looking at the office areas and things like that, where maybe we can double up on some of the staff or whatever, and maybe it frees up some other spaces. So that was kind of the idea, just to go through all that and see what we came out with. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we were doing, what was requested was, we have planners, and each planner has a region and a certain amount of schools that they're responsible within their region. So instead of taking that previous slide, just the data out, earlier I had configured the Archibus system to be able to print out the actual floors. So what we did, and what you're seeing here on this one is, this is a floor of a school, and then up in the corner there, that's all the data that we were going after, to show the people, or show the principals actually, because that's where the planners want to go, who the planners want to go meet, were the principals, and to show the principals where on this map, where can we pick up space? I mean, because they're the ones that really know the school. So the beauty of this is, this goes back to the like the first slide when I was saying our data may not be perfect in the Archibus system, and I know it's not, but this is one way that we're kind of fulfilling the loop. And when this stuff is, these drawings and data and all this stuff are now coming back to me with corrections and things like that. So I was able to, I'll be able to update my existing data to what's currently out there. And I think this helped out tremendously with trying to identify the spaces with the principals and whomever else was out there. So that's kind of how I did that. I don't know if is there another slide on this? I forgot. Nope, that was it. So that's kind of how I did it. And that's the path that we're taking right now. And it seems to be working rather well. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Dan Miller and Julia, and they really helped me out a lot on this. And I don't think I could have done it without their help, and I appreciate it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bob. And I think we actually had a couple of questions that came in for you. The first one is, how did you accommodate for circulation?
I tried to keep a walkway, a minimum walkway of 3 to 4 feet around the, and by circulation meaning in and out. So I was trying to keep about a 3 or 4 foot path around the perimeter of the chairs and such. So that's how I dealt with that.
Okay, great. And the other one was, who will be responsible for setup and breakups?
Well, we have a whole, if you're talking about the initial setups, that's what we're doing right now. In the summer right now, we've asked all the teachers to leave and they left last Friday, I believe. So right now it's going to be the initial setup, much like that one of the photos that you saw on the slide deck. They're going to be setting it up. What happens after that, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure who's going to be responsible for replacing the desks in the exact positions. I would assume it's going to be a teacher or whoever's running the class or that whatever discipline they're doing.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think we have some just general questions for both you, Bob, and Michael. So if either one of you want to jump on these, that would be great. So the first one is your school system expecting all kids to be back to school at the same time, or are you going to stagger your schedules?
You want to do this one, Mike, or you want me to take it?
I'll take it. At the moment, since we're college university, fall semester is coming up. Right now, we're pretty much tallying as to how many students are returning and how many are not. So that data is being generated now, calculated now. I don't think that we're planning on doing any staggering. I think we're planning on starting the semester a little bit earlier and, ending it, I believe, around Thanksgiving break. So they'll probably have a longer break and starting a little bit earlier. So, but a lot of those discussions are in the works still, but no staggering at the moment.
Yeah, as far as Long Beach, I know we're shooting for September 1st. Now, much to what Michael had said, we're not sure who's coming back either. We don't have definite numbers of how many kids will be at a school anymore. So I didn't hear anything about. I should say this. I did hear things about staggering, but I haven't heard anything about staggering lately. So I think there's still ongoing discussions going on as far as how they're going to do that. But I know September 1st was we're going to have some kids in the seats. So again, that's why the teachers were asked to leave last week, and they're updating the classrooms right now.
Great, thank you. And as far as the new layout that you guys are implementing in your different classrooms and lecture halls, are you fixing the chairs to the floors, or are they still movable?
No, they're all movable. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, are you going to put dots down on these floors or something so people can line the chairs up again? I don't know. That's going to have to go back to, I think, the teacher in the class and how they're going to maintain their patterns. So
yeah, I would second that as well. Ours are movable as well. What we try to do is put some signage around campus to be able to kind of reinforce the social distancing as a reminder for faculty and the students, so that they can take precaution as needed.
Okay, and another follow-up question to that, in addition to like the physical distancing, are there any other steps for safety of the students and staff that you are taking?
In my design, not really. I'm really not. I've been so focused on just doing these layouts. I'm not really sure, what other safety measures would be going in for the teachers or any of those other students. So I really can't answer that at this point.
So one thing that we are trying to do to create some more safety measures is, for example, there's some workstations where we have receptionists, high traffic areas where some employees sit, and they're essential and they need to sit in their certain area. We're creating plexiglass to put around their workstations to give some extra protection. As it relates to students, we're looking into having some disinfection wipes being placed in some of the classrooms, hand sanitizer stations at certain areas to be able to help with the safety measures as students and faculty come back to campus.
I do have one comment on that. One of the things that they are talking about is for the students and such is most of the schools have cafeterias, right? So what they're actually talking about now is just delivering food to the classroom. In other words, the student's not going to be getting up to go to the cafeteria to eat. They're going to be eating at their desks. That's really the only thing I've heard, other than what Michael just said about hand sanitizer in the classes and stuff. That's a given. But that's the only thing I heard that would be a little different.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But the problem is, we don't know. One of the things is, we don't know if we even have enough vendors out here in Long Beach to be able to do that, to actually, provide. Because, like I said, we have 87 schools. That's a lot of meals, a lot of kids. So I don't even know if it's even doable just by resource standards.
Right. Yeah. So a lot to think about for that
Mm-hmm.
to actually make it happen.
Yeah, really.
All right, great. Looks like we need to have a few more questions here. So in addition to the space console, I guess within Archibus, are you looking at any other applications such as the health and safety application?
Me, I am not. I'm still buried in this part. So I don't know,
I would
maybe.
say that. Sorry, Bob.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. That is something that we looked into, but we have been so inundated with trying to get everybody back onto campus and create a social distancing environment that we haven't proceeded with the Archibus health and safety module at the moment.
Gotcha.
But
Okay,
it's something that we are looking into.
great. And I guess kind of related to that, there was a question about, are you doing anything to manage cleaning activities of infected spaces, or like training your faculty and staff on how to comply with new programs related to COVID?
Actually,
Go ahead, man.
sorry. Actually, our facilities team is looking into different cleaning solutions that can be able to clean surfaces. We're actually using the Archibus platform to be able to see some spaces that are heavily utilized, and give that information over to the facilities department so that they can efficiently clean certain areas. So, like, let's say the print rooms, the cafeteria areas, the faculty cafeterias, things of that nature, as high touch points. So for the facilities team to go by and clean. So that's something how we're leveraging the data that we have in Archibus.
As far as ours, I'm sure that that's going on right now. Again, I know there's some special training going on with the plant managers of how to deal with it, what to clean, how to clean, what to use. But again, that's to what Michael said. We are just so inundated and just trying to get the find the number of people we can actually place and sit down and get them in seats. So I haven't had any real time into investigating any of that stuff right now.
Okay, great. And I think the last question here, in general, is there a new relationship or attitude or maybe responsibility between the facility and the school executives as it pertains to COVID? I guess, have you guys started working even more closely with the executives at the schools?
Well, I can say that I've been out to the board building about 5 times, redoing their meeting places and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's anything new. I think they're glad to see us. They're glad to see me come in so I can take care of the stuff. But I don't think there's any, I think maybe it is what it is, There's always that little divide there. So
Yeah, I would say we pretty much have a close communication with the executives from design and construction department and the facilities department. We pretty much have a close-knit relationship. So there has been more conversation due to COVID-19 and our plans and saying what does the new normal look like, what protocols do we have in place. So there has been additional conversation, especially when we're talking about budgets and how much we're planning to spend on certain items and lead times and things of that nature. So there has been more conversation than usual, of course, because of recent events, yes.
Sure. Okay, great. think that is the last question. So Michael and Bob, thank you again so much. I do have just a couple of other things I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of before we close out. First is our health and safety offer. So we are offering free new licenses of our health and safety application through September 30th of next year. It's available to all existing Archibus customers with an active software subscription contract, and it's available on any version of Archibus Web Central where the health and safety application is available, and it is subject to the same support as other Web Central applications. So you can find more information on that by going to info.archibus.com/EHS-offer. We also have our Getting Back to Work Resource Center. So this is where we're posting all of our resources related to COVID. We have several interviews that we've done with different customers and partners. We have some blog posts and other resources that we think would be really valuable to you. So if you want to check that out, you can go to info.archibus.com/back-to-work. And then finally, we have just a brief 3-question survey that will pop up after we close out this webinar. If you wouldn't mind taking just a few minutes to fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. So with that, I think that concludes our webinar. Again, we thank Michael and Bob for joining us today, and Michael Willett for being our moderator. We hope that the information was helpful to you, and we hope to speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.